What would you do if the person you loved most disappeared from your life without a single explanation, only to return after 25 long years with a truth that completely freezes your heart? This is the story of Keanu Reeves and the high school love he never forgot, and the shocking confession she finally revealed when he showed up at her door after decades. What she told him changed everything. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Now let's dive into what really happened. It began with a single message, just a few typed words that Keanu Reeves never expected to send in his entire life. But sometimes, life pushes you toward the past in ways you can't explain. Keanu had just finished a long day, interviews, meetings, people praising him for his success, yet he felt strangely empty. When he got home, he opened an old box he hadn't touched in years. Inside it lay a dusty high school yearbook. And right there, pressed between two pages, was a faded photo of his 18-year-old self. Young, awkward, hopeful, and standing next to the girl who once meant everything to him. Lena Morgan. She wasn't just a classmate. She was the first person who ever made him feel seen. Back then, Keanu was quiet, unsure of himself, and far from the Hollywood icon he would one day become. But Lena? She believed in him relentlessly. She was the girl who sat next to him during lunch, when no one else did. The girl who listened to his dreams without laughing. The girl who used to whisper, "One day, you'll shine so bright the world won't be able to ignore you." She spoke those words with absolute certainty, long before directors, fans, and red carpets ever entered his life. But life has a way of changing even the strongest promises. After graduation, they vowed to stay together. They wrote letters, made phone calls, and planned a future. But as Keanu's career pulled him one way and Lena's responsibilities pulled her another, their connection slowly faded. Not because they stopped caring, but because adulthood doesn't wait for young love to catch up. There was no big fight, no dramatic ending, just silence. A silence that stretched into months, then years, then decades. Now, 25 years later, Keanu couldn't explain why her memory hit him so suddenly. Maybe it was nostalgia, a reminder of a simpler version of himself. Maybe it was loneliness, the kind that fame can't fix. Or maybe life was giving him one more chance to understand the chapter he never finished. Whatever the reason, he found himself sitting at his computer, typing her name into a search bar. His fingers trembled as he hovered over the enter key. Then, with a deep breath, he pressed it. And in that moment, the past came rushing back, more powerful than he ever expected. Finding Lena again was easier than Keanu expected and harder than he was ready for. She wasn't living in a big city or hiding behind social media. Instead, she had settled into a quiet coastal town, peaceful streets, small cafes, friendly neighbors, and waves that sounded like they had stories of their own. She worked as a school counselor, guiding lost teenagers the same way she once guided him. And even in the simple photos online, smiling with students, standing at the beach, holding books, she still radiated the same warmth he remembered. His heart raced as he typed a short message. "Hi Lena, it's been a long time." He expected her to ignore it, or take days to reply. But within minutes, his phone buzzed. "Keanu? After 25 years? Are you okay?" That simple question cracked open every memory he had locked away. For the next few hours, they talked nonstop about teachers they disliked, about dreams they once chased, about the world that had changed them both. The conversation felt like reaching into a time capsule, dusty but untouched, still filled with the innocence of who they once were. Then suddenly her tone shifted. "If you're ever in town, come see me, but only if you want the truth." The truth. That one word hit him like a wave. What truth? Why now? Why, after so many years? He couldn't sleep that night. Or the next. 2 days later, without telling his agents, his team, or even his closest friends, Keanu slipped into his car. No security. No cars following him. No Hollywood noise. Just a man heading toward a past he never really left behind. When he reached her house, A small cottage with white curtains and pots of flowers. His hands trembled. He knocked. For a moment, there was silence. Then the doorknob turned. Lena opened the door slowly, and time seemed to pause. She hadn't changed in the way he feared. Yes, the years had touched her gently, but her eyes, the same kind eyes that once believed in him, were still filled with warmth. Her presence was still calming, still familiar. They stared at each other for a few seconds, unable to speak. Finally, she whispered, "I can't believe it's really you." And in that fragile moment, it felt as if the past and present collided, and everything they had left unsaid for 25 years was standing right there between them. They walked side by side along the shoreline, their footsteps sinking softly into the warm sand. The ocean breeze carried a familiar calm, almost as if it remembered them too, two teenagers who once dreamed of forever. The waves rolled gently, each one sounding like a memory rising to the surface. Keanu kept glancing at Lena, sensing something heavy building behind her quiet smile. She seemed brave but also vulnerable, like someone carrying a secret for far too long. Finally, she stopped. She faced the ocean, took a long, shaky breath, and said the words that made Keanu's chest tighten. "Keanu, I need to tell you something I never could back then." The air around them grew still. His heart pounded in his ears. She turned toward him, eyes glistening. "I didn't leave you because I didn't love you. I left because I did." He froze. For years, he replayed their ending in his mind, imagining she outgrew him, found someone better, or simply moved on. But this was a truth he had never prepared for. Lena continued, voice trembling but steady. She told him how at 18, she could already see who he was becoming. He had a spark, something rare, something powerful. Directors were calling, auditions were piling up, and people whispered that he was destined for greatness. But Lena didn't come from that world. She grew up in a small, struggling family. Money was tight, responsibilities were heavy, and dreams felt like luxuries she wasn't allowed to choose. She feared that being with her, someone with limitations and burdens, would anchor him to a life far smaller than the one he deserved. "You were meant to fly," she said, her voice breaking. "And I was terrified of being the reason you never took off." Her tears shimmered in the sunlight. Keanu stood speechless, the truth hitting him deeper than any heartbreak he had ever endured. His voice was barely a whisper. "But I wanted you with me. I always did." She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I know," she said softly, "and that's exactly why I walked away." It wasn't rejection. It wasn't betrayal. It was sacrifice. A sacrifice he never knew he had been given. The weight of her confession settled over him like the tide, slow, overwhelming, impossible to escape. For the first time in 25 years, he finally understood the heartbreak he carried. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and soft gold. Keanu and Lena found an old wooden bench overlooking the ocean, worn, cracked, but steady. It felt like the perfect metaphor for them. Old, yet still holding something. A strange sensation settled in Keanu's chest, a blend of peace, pain, and a quiet acceptance he couldn't name. He finally turned to her, his voice low. "Why now? Why tell me after all these years?" Lena didn't look at him. Instead, she watched the waves roll in, as if waiting for them to answer for her. After a long breath, she whispered, "Because I wanted you to know I never forgot you. Not for a single year." Her words hit him with unexpected force. But before he could respond, she said something that shifted everything. "And because I'm leaving soon." Keanu's eyebrows tightened. "Leaving where?" She smiled softly, but there was a sadness hiding underneath, like someone who had already accepted something hard, long before speaking it aloud. "I'm moving abroad for volunteer work," she said. "A long-term program. It's something I've wanted to do my whole life." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy. It was real. Keanu finally understood. She wasn't opening the past to rebuild it. She was opening it to release it. She wasn't asking him to follow her. She wasn't asking for a second chance. She wasn't even asking him to stay in her life. All she wanted was something simple, something human. Closure. The closure they never got at 18. The closure she knew he deserved, even if it came 25 years late. Keanu looked at her quietly, absorbing the truth. He had come here with a heart full of hopes, maybe to understand what happened, maybe to fix it, or maybe to rekindle something he thought time had frozen. But life had moved forward for both of them. She had built a quiet, meaningful life. She had found purpose. She had made peace with the choices that once tore her apart. And now, she was choosing a path that didn't include looking backward. Yet somehow, Keanu didn't feel abandoned. He felt grateful. Grateful for her honesty. Grateful for the love she once gave without asking for anything. Grateful for the closure he never knew he needed until this moment. For the first time in a long time, he felt something unexpected. Freedom. The sky had turned a soft orange, the final glow of daylight wrapping the world in a warm, gentle goodbye. Keanu and Lena stood facing each other, both knowing their moment was ending, yet neither wanting to rush the final few seconds. Keanu looked into her eyes with the same sincerity he had carried as a teenager, wide, honest, vulnerable. "Thank you for loving me then, and for telling me now." His voice cracked slightly, not with sadness, but with gratitude. Deep, genuine gratitude for the truth she had carried for 25 years. Lena reached out and touched his arm, her hand light but meaningful. "You were never meant to stay in my life forever, Keanu," she said softly. "But you were meant to shape it." Her words settled over him like a gentle wave. They didn't hurt. They didn't sting. They simply made sense. He looked down, struggling to process everything he had learned. "So, what am I supposed to do with all this?" he asked quietly. Lena smiled, a warm, heartfelt smile that carried years of acceptance. "Live. Love. And don't be afraid to let people in." The simplicity of her answer was what struck him the most. She wasn't trying to rewrite the past. She wasn't trying to hold on to him. She was giving him permission to move forward, something he didn't know he needed. As Keanu walked back toward his car, the cool evening air brushed his face. Yet he felt lighter, almost reborn. Not because he regained something from his past, but because he finally understood it. Some people are not meant to stay. They're meant to teach you, to change you, to prepare you for who you're meant to become. Lena was one of those people. And sometimes, returning to your past doesn't give you what you lost. It gives you what you need to finally move forward. Before getting into the car, Keanu turned one last time. Lena still stood by the bench, framed by the glow of the setting sun. She raised a hand in a quiet goodbye. He whispered under his breath, "Thank you, Lena, for the truth." As the engine hummed to life and he drove down the winding road, Keanu felt something he hadn't felt in years. His heart unfreezing. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't haunted by the past. He was inspired by it.